Before going into the topic details, I want to bring your attention to the UPSC coaching programs offered by ClearIAS. ClearIAS offers online and offline courses to help candidates get selected for prestigious government services like IAS, IPS, or IFS. ClearIAS, Prelims cum Mains, PCM course, provides a highly effective study plan, well-organized subject-wise videos, study materials, mock exams, and guidance to cover the entire GS syllabus of UPSC CSE Prelims, Mains, and Interview systematically. As a limited period offer, there is a 40% discount on our online courses. Enroll now.
So we go to the next smaller topic. Right. So there is actually one report that actually came out, that is the regional of the India's regional disparity. That is the context. That is the point which we are actually discussing. And what is the report actually saying? Economic Advisory Council that actually suggested that the southern states actually make up around 30% of the India's GDP. So which are the southern states? There is Tamil Nadu, there is Kerala, there is actually Andhra, there is Karnataka, there is Telangana also. So all these southern states are actually making up of India's 30% of the GDP. And that's what actually the report is actually highlighting. And it is also highlighting about how certain regions are actually progressing, how certain regions are not progressing. That is what the report is actually talking about. And what is the report is actually called? It is called as the relative economic performance of Indian state report. Relative economic performance of the Indian state report. Even if in your exam, there may be a question in GS paper 1 in Indian society aspect, what about the different disparities, or in GS paper 3 Indian economy, that also has a possibility of asking such a question about regional disparity. And this was one topic which was widely discussed in the economic survey also previously. So we can directly mention about the economic service, or we can also mention about the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister's EAC-PM, their recommendation from this report of 2024. And this report actually analyzes the economic growth of all the progress of India from 1960s to 2024. So 1960s to 2024, around 60 years of progress. That's what the report is actually talking about. And they are actually talking about they're emphasizing or focusing on post-liberalization era, that is from the 1990s onwards. So what was the change happening from 60s to 90s and what happened after 90s? That is what the report is actually talking about. So when we're talking about this particular report, we have to understand what are the major observations of the report. It's only a few points. It's a small topic. So the point is regional disparity. And what they're actually saying, the western states, so for example, Maharashtra, for example, Gujarat, they're actually having consistent growth and consistent economic development. So that's the number one point. The western states are actually having continuous or consistent development. One of the important reasons is because they have access to the sea, so that they can trade more. That is the one point. So compared with the such western states, what happened is that the southern states has performed well post 1991. So when we think about the south, yes, they were consistent, but it was after the liberalization era. It was after the 1990s. The southern states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra, and Telangana, they have started performing better. So globally, the liberalization impact, the LPG reforms in 1990s, it definitely had a huge impact on the southern states. That's one of the things which the report is actually saying. And the next thing is that what is one of the reasons? The reasons is maritime. Just like I said, Maharashtra and Gujarat always perform better. Why? Because of the maritime influence. So they are saying is that it is actually in correlation with the former economic survey concept that is called as the two Indias. India is not one, India is actually two. One is actually the coastal India. That's the idea of the report. One is the coastal area of India, which is having wider access to the seas. They can have trade more. But there is actually another India, that is the second India. The another India, which is actually the hinterlands. Or we can say the landlocked areas. So the hinterlands and the landlocked areas, they are actually facing more and more issues because they cannot actually trade easily. They have to depend on other states, then only they can go to the ports, they can export thereafter. So that's another point. There are two Indias, and this report also highlights the very same thing, that the maritime states are performing better than the other hinterland areas. That is one important point. And along with that, there is one exception to this maritime status, that is actually the West Bengal. So West Bengal, it was actually highlighted in the newspapers also, because It was seen in the, even the Hindu newspaper highlighted the point, that is, it was actually the West Bengal economy which had performed poorly over the several decades, while all other maritime states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, everyone, that the Odisha including, they were all performing better because of the maritime influence, because they had access to the sea. But West Bengal, even though they had a major port, even though they had this major urban cities like Kolkata, even though that was the maritime state actually, but they were not actually performing better. That is the report suggested. For example, West Bengal actually having a GDP of around 10, GDP share in India's GDP was actually 10.5% in 1960s. But when it comes to 2024, their GDP percentage actually drastically fell down to almost 5.6, almost half. So where they were, and now they are only half of the, they are only having half the contribution to the national GDP from the 1960 to the 2024. That is the point which they are actually saying. And when dealing with the exception of West Bengal also, we have to also understand that there is actually kind of a diverging growth scenario is also seen. That means the Dutch disease is also seen. It is actually dealing with Punjab and Haryana. That's an interesting fact, because both the Punjab and Haryana was actually bifurcated, and the states became Punjab and Haryana. They were actually growing together. They started growing together, and they had all the facilities, of course. But it is actually seen that the Punjab is actually the GDP share of Punjab is actually falling, while the Haryana share of GDP is actually rising. So Punjab is seeing not a good growth, but Haryana is seeing a better growth. There is fundamental, basically reasons are there, because Haryana is actually more close to the Delhi region. Of course, some major reasons are definitely there, but one of the reasons they are listing it is actually about the Dutch disease. Dutch disease. It is actually one of the reasons behind the diverging growth of Punjab and Haryana. What is this Dutch disease actually about? It says that when there is a rapid growth of one sector, or one or two sectors, etc., such as what do you say, agriculture, or you can say pesticides, etc., something like that, some manufacturing of pesticides, etc., like that. So when there is actually rapid growth of one or two sectors, what happens is that there is actually decline in the focus on other sectors. For example, maybe services, maybe industry, etc. So what happened in Punjab and Haryana is that, what happened especially in Punjab is that they were excessively focusing on agriculture because of Green Revolution, etc. So what happened was that they had less focus on other sectors such as industrial development, manufacturing, services, etc. So ultimately, what is the result? Haryana is actually growing better, and Punjab is actually not that much growing better. So that is what is known as the Dutch disease. What that is, when we are focusing on some sectors, that will improve, but certain other sectors will fall down. That is the result of the disparity between Punjab and Haryana. And last but not the least, in this topic, we have to understand why this disparity between exists in India between different states. Of course, there is a lot of different reasons. One is definitely geography, and second is definitely the resources. So every state is not blessed with all kind of resources. A state like Tamil Nadu may not be that much rich in coal, just like Jharkhand, right? So there are different, and a state like Madhya Pradesh or Jharkhand is not that rich, or that not that much benefited by access to the sea, just like Tamil Nadu. Vice versa also. So it is ultimately based on geography. Ultimately, is based on different kinds of resources also. And there is one other thing, that there is actually something like that is called as the resource curse. That is called as the resource curse. So what do you mean by resource curse? We take certain states like Chhattisgarh, certain states like Odisha, etc. What do you mean by resource curse? These states like Odisha, Chhattisgarh, etc., are actually extremely rich in natural resources, right? Coal is there, all kinds of certain kinds of uranium is also found there, all kinds of all kinds of resources for the iron and steel industries, all the raw materials, hematite, magnetite, all the things are actually found in these kind of states such as Chhattisgarh or Odisha, etc. But what is the resource curse? The states which are actually having high amount of resources such as Chhattisgarh are actually not showing that kind of economic growth. So whatever the resources, they're actually getting it from there, but the benefits actually reap from the other states actually. So that is the point which they're actually raised. The reason is resource curse, that is the states which are having high amount of resources are not getting the result or the growth or the development, economic growth, because of the resources. All the benefits are reaped by certain other states or certain other regions. That is called as the resource curse of the Indian economy. Not the Indian economy, it is prevalent in world economy, of course. Right. And then certain different levels of industrialization. The levels, industrialization levels also matters. For example, certain regions like Mumbai in Maharashtra, which is highly industrialized. But just look at this, the very same state in Maharashtra, there is a region in the eastern side that is called as Vidarbha. Right, Vidarbha is actually not that much developed as Mumbai. So that maybe we can say that the entire GDP of that district or the region of Vidarbha maybe may not be even half that of the city of Mumbai. So there is regional disparity, intra disparities also. Within the state also there are certain kind of disparities that we cannot actually forget. That is the result of industrialization. How much investments are actually coming, how much industrialization is actually coming, that kind of thing is actually important. So investments, the level of investments also matter. That is the point. Then the next thing we already mentioned about the landlockness. For example, certain countries which are extremely landlocked, they'll find it extremely difficult for business, etc. And last but not the least, what about the disaster vulnerability? Disaster vulnerabilities. Certain states are actually more vulnerable to certain disasters. For example, when the tsunami struck in the initial 2000s, who are the states which was affected? It was Tamil Nadu, it may be Andhra, and some states, some parts of Kerala, etc. But it was not affected in the other parts. When it comes to what is a flooding, etc. Like recently, the states like Kerala is actually having more like floods. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka also having floods also, and some urban centers like Chennai, Bangalore, or Mumbai, etc. is facing floods. But not the other regions. So every part of the country is actually facing one or other types of disasters. So based on the disaster vulnerability also, the region is actually developing. The region is having showing disparities also. You may have a lot of investment, you may have a lot of economic development also, but suddenly when one disaster is striking, and then there is a possibility of that disaster striking again, which means that the trust will come down, the investor trust will come down. Normally the businesses will go elsewhere. Like just like after COVID, when all the businesses were focused on China, and after COVID, what happened was that the country started shifting away from China. The investment started shifting away from China, right? And India is trying to capitalize on that. So just like that, there will be disparities because of the disasters also. So these are the major reasons which was listed by the Economic Advisory Committee on this particular report that is called as the relative economic performance of Indian states. All right, you can use these kind of data to as an introduction to an answer, as a conclusion to an answer, or at the main point, in the main body part also when a particular topic is actually about the regional disparities. Rather than listing out your own reasons, you can write these kind of points which is substantiated by the EAC, that is Economic Advisory Council. It is the official document of the government, of course.